I drive a used Subaru Outback I bought with my own money 3 years ago. It has a dent above the rear wheel, well, that I keep meaning to fix, and the passenger side mirror has a crack running through the corner. I don't mind it. It's mine. I didn't always feel that way. Like things could just be mine, without an explanation attached. My brother's wedding was in September. Destination wedding, technically, though destination is a generous word for a 4-hour drive to a lake house resort in upstate New York. My brother, Theo, had been dating his fiancée, Pamela, for 2 years. She was fine. I didn't know her well enough to have a strong opinion. What I did have a strong opinion about was the way my family had handled everything leading up to that weekend. I should back up. I'm the oldest of 3. Theo is 2 years younger than me. My sister Brooke is the youngest. She's 24. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and we grew up mostly with our mom. She remarried a man named Gerald when I was 16. Gerald has 2 kids from his first marriage. Twin boys named Cody and Kyle, who are now in their late 20s and have never once acknowledged me or my siblings at a family function, except to ask if we were going to finish whatever was on our plates. I work in healthcare administration. I'm not rich, but I'm stable. I have a savings account, a retirement contribution, and I do not carry credit card debt. This is relevant because my family seems to believe that financial stability is an invitation. It started small, the way it always does. A phone call here, a favor there. Can you spot Theo for the bachelor party deposit? He'll pay you back. Can you help with the rehearsal dinner flowers? Just front the cost. Mom will Venmo you. Can you book an extra room for Grandma Nadine because she can't share with anyone and the resort is almost sold out? I said yes to all of it. I always said yes. The wedding weekend started on a Friday. The resort was called Lakeview Hollow. Beautiful place, white fences and pine trees and a dock that stretched out over the water. I drove up alone because I'd taken a half day from work. My boyfriend couldn't make it. He had a family obligation of his own, and we'd only been dating 4 months, so I wasn't going to push it. I checked into my room. Standard king, $289 a night, which I had paid for myself without complaint. Down the hall, my mom and Gerald had a suite. Not because they'd splurged, because Theo had upgraded them as a gift, using a resort credit that, I would later learn, had been funded in part by the $400 I'd fronted for miscellaneous wedding costs. I found this out accidentally, from Pamela's maid of honor, who mentioned it at the welcome dinner as if it were common knowledge. I smiled and said, "Oh, that's sweet." I set my fork down very carefully on the edge of my plate. The welcome dinner was at the resort's main dining room. Long tables, white tablecloths, little candles in mason jars. Casual but expensive, the way things are when someone else is making the decisions and you're just expected to show up and be grateful. There were about 30 people total between both families. My mom had saved me a seat next to her, which sounds kind until you understand that the seat was also next to Gerald, and directly across from Cody, who spent the first 20 minutes of dinner explaining to the table why he'd recently switched to a carnivore diet. I ordered the salmon. It was $38. I paid for it myself because the welcome dinner was not hosted. Everyone was on their own tab, which I had not been told in advance. Brooke ordered a pasta dish and a glass of wine and then leaned over and whispered, "Can I borrow $40? I only have my emergency card." I gave her $60 because I knew she wouldn't have change. After dinner, there was a bonfire by the lake. Theo came and found me while I was standing near the edge of the dock, holding a glass of white wine and watching the water. "Hey," he said. He had his arm around Pamela, and they were both glowing the way people glow right before the best weekend of their lives. I was genuinely happy for him. That's the complicated part. I was happy for him, and I was also tired in a way I couldn't fully name yet. "Hey," I said. "It's beautiful up here." "I know, right? Hey, so I wanted to ask you something." He glanced at Pamela, who smiled and looked at the water. "The photographer is asking for the final balance tomorrow morning. It's $2,200. I'm a little short because the florist invoice came in higher than expected. Do you think you could—" "How much?" I asked. "Just $600. Mom already said she'd cover the rest. $600. On top of the $400 I'd already fronted, on top of Brooke's $60, on top of my room and my travel and my salmon." "Sure," I said. He hugged me. "You're the best. I'll pay you back after we get back from the honeymoon." I nodded and watched a boat move slowly across the dark water. That night, in my room, I did the math. I had, over the course of 8 months, contributed $1,247 to my brother's wedding in various forms, deposits, fronted costs, reimbursements that never came. Some of those were things I'd agreed to. Some of them had just appeared in my account activity, like they were obvious. Like of course I would cover that, because I always had. I lay on top of the hotel duvet and stared at the ceiling and thought, what exactly is the plan here? The wedding was Saturday at 4 o'clock, ceremony by the lake, reception in the pavilion. It was genuinely lovely. Pamela looked beautiful. Theo cried, which surprised me in a good way. I held Brooke's hand during the vows, and she squeezed it twice, and I thought, okay, this is still my family. I love them. The reception was where things shifted. The head table was Theo and Pamela and their wedding party. 8 people, 4 on each side. The rest of us were at round tables arranged around the dance floor. I was at a table with my mom, Gerald, Gerald's parents, and Cody and Kyle. Kyle had brought a girlfriend no one had met before. She spent the first hour of the reception on her phone, which, honestly, I understood. Dinner was served in courses. Salad, then a choice between chicken marsala or a stuffed portobello, then a small dessert plate. The food was included in the reception cost, obviously. I am not complaining about the food. What I am talking about is what happened when the bar tap came up. Halfway through the reception, Gerald pulled me aside near the edge of the pavilion. He had a glass of bourbon in his hand, and the specific expression of a man who is about to say something he has already decided is reasonable. Your mom and I were talking, he said, and since you've been so helpful with everything, we thought it would be a really nice gesture if you picked up the bar tab for the immediate family tonight. Just our table. It's a way to contribute to the celebration. I looked at him. The open bar is already part of the venue package, I said. Right, but for the extended drinks after, there's a side menu. Premium spirits, specialty cocktails. It adds up. How much are we talking? He shrugged in a way that told me he already knew the answer. Probably around 300. Maybe a little more. I looked across the pavilion at my mom, who was watching us from the table with an expression that was carefully, deliberately neutral. She knew this conversation was happening. She had sent him to have it. Gerald, I said, I've already put in over $1,000 toward this weekend. I know, and we really appreciate that. This would just be a finishing touch. A finishing touch. I excused myself to use the restroom. I stood in the bathroom for 4 minutes. I ran cold water over my wrists the way you do when you're trying to think clearly. I looked at myself in the mirror above the sink. My hair was up. I had lipstick on. I was wearing a dress I'd bought specifically for this weekend. And I thought about all the times I had said yes because it was easier than the alternative. I went back out to the pavilion. I found my seat. I ate my chicken marsala. It was actually very good. When my table ordered another round of drinks from the side menu, Gerald got a second bourbon, Cody got some kind of craft gin situation, Kyle's girlfriend finally put her phone down long enough to order a champagne cocktail. I watched it happen and said nothing. When the bill came for the premium drinks at our table, I watched Gerald pick it up and glance at it, and then set it down in the middle of the table in that way. That means he expected it to migrate to me. I reached across the table and picked up the bill. It was $312. I took out my wallet. I pulled out my credit card. And then I did the math on what I had ordered. 1 glass of sparkling water because I was driving, and 1 glass of the house white earlier in the evening. I flagged down the server. Hi, I said. I'm so sorry. Can you split this out? I'd like to pay for my sparkling water and the earlier house wine. I gave her my card. The rest of the table can settle separately. The server, to her credit, did not react at all. She just said, of course, and went to work on it. The table went quiet in the particular way that happens when something is shifted and everyone can feel it, but no one wants to be the first to name it. Gerald cleared his throat. What are you doing? I'm paying for my drinks, I said. We're family, my mom said. Her voice was very even. She was using the voice that means she is choosing her words carefully. I know, I said. I've been treating this weekend like family for 8 months. I'm just paying for my drinks tonight. Cody made a sound that was almost a laugh. Kyle's girlfriend looked up from where she had apparently found her phone again. My mom said my name in a tone that suggested we would be discussing this later. The server came back with my card. My portion was $14. I signed the slip, added a 30% tip, and put my wallet away. No one said anything for a moment. Then Gerald picked up the bill for the rest of the table, and the night moved on, the way nights do. I danced with Brooke twice. I gave a small toast at the dessert course that made Theo laugh. I hugged Pamela and told her the ceremony was beautiful, which was true. I said goodnight to my mom with a kiss on the cheek, and she held my hand a beat longer than usual, and I couldn't tell if it was affection or a message. I drove home Sunday morning. 2 days later, Theo texted me. Just wanted to say thank you for everything. You really came through for us this weekend. Means a lot. I wrote back, so happy for you both. It was a beautiful wedding. He sent a heart emoji. Then, 15 minutes later, hey, also, do you remember, is the $600 photographer thing on your Visa or your debit? Just want to make sure I'm sending it to the right account. I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter. I made coffee. I drank it standing at the window, watching the neighbor's dog walk slow circles in the yard next door. Then I picked my phone back up and wrote, Visa. No rush, whenever works for you. Because here's the thing no one tells you about the moment you stop being the family ATM. It's not one dramatic exit. It's not a speech. It's not even a fight. It's a slow, quiet decision made in a bathroom at a lake house resort while you run cold water over your wrists and look at yourself in a mirror. It's paying $14 and signing your name and putting your wallet away. It's understanding, for the first time, that every single time you said yes, every deposit, every forwarded invoice, every just this once, you were training them. And now you have to untrain them. Not with anger, not with a letter, just with a different answer. The $600 came back to me 6 weeks later. Theo Venmo'd it with the note, honeymoon was amazing $2. No mention of the $647 before it. I accepted the payment. I did not bring up the rest. My mom called me that following month. We talked for 45 minutes about everything except the wedding reception. She told me Brooke had gotten a new job. She told me Gerald's son Cody was thinking about moving to Denver. She asked about my boyfriend. Near the end of the call, she said, very casually, Theo mentioned you seemed a little stressed at the reception. I was fine, I said. He said you made things a little awkward with the bill. I took a breath. I paid for what I ordered. She was quiet. Mom, I said, I put in over $1,000 for that wedding. I fronted money I haven't fully been paid back. I covered Brooke's dinner. I upgraded Grandma Nadine's room. I paid the photographer deposit. I paid for my drinks that night. I don't think that's awkward. I think that's reasonable. Another silence. You know how important that weekend was to your brother, she said finally. I know, I said. I was there. We talked for another few minutes and then said goodbye. She told me she loved me. I told her I loved her too. Both things were true and neither of them resolved anything. That was 7 months ago. Things are not dramatically different. Theo and Pamela are happy. I see photos on Instagram of their new apartment and it looks nice. Brooke got that job and seems to be doing better about the emergency card situation. My mom and Gerald are the same. Cody did not move to Denver. What is different is me. My boyfriend and I are still together. We went to his cousin's wedding last spring. Casual backyard ceremony, potluck reception, everyone brought a dish, and it was genuinely the most fun I'd had at a wedding in years. Nobody asked me to front anything. Nobody handed me a bill at the end of the night. I brought a layered chocolate cake from a bakery near my apartment, and people kept asking for the name of the place. I've stopped saying yes before I finished sharing the question. That sounds small. It is not small. The last time my mom called to ask if I could help cover something, a birthday dinner for Gerald, $40 a head. Just in the family. I said, let me check my budget and get back to you. She waited. I got back to her and said I could bring a dessert, but couldn't do the per head cost that month. There was a pause that lasted just a little too long, and then she said, okay, that works. It worked. Nothing collapsed. No one stopped speaking to me. The dinner happened. I brought a fruit tart from the same bakery, and Gerald said it was very good. That's the thing about finally saying a quiet no after years of loud yeses. It feels enormous from the inside. From the outside, most of the time, the world just keeps going. I still drive the Subaru with the dented wheel well. I'm still thinking about fixing it. But I'm not in a rush. It'll happen when I decide it's time. I've been thinking about what actually happened that night. Not the drama of it, because there wasn't much drama, honestly. There was just a bill and a choice and $14. That's the part people don't expect when they imagine finally standing up for themselves. They picture a speech. They picture the room going quiet in a cinematic way. What actually happens is much smaller and much harder. You pick up a piece of paper. You do the math on what is yours. You hand over your card and you sign your name and you put your wallet away. And then you sit back down and eat your chicken marsala and watch the night continue around you like nothing happened. Because for everyone else, nothing did. I spent a long time being the person who kept things running smoothly by absorbing the cost, financially, emotionally, logistically. I told myself that's what it meant to be responsible. That's what the oldest does. You handle things, you don't make it awkward, you figure it out later. But later never came, and the absorbing never stopped. And somewhere in there, I stopped noticing that the arrangement only worked in one direction. What changed for me wasn't anger. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't furious standing in that bathroom at Lakeview Hollow. I was just tired of being confused about what was mine and what wasn't. I was tired of doing the math in my head at every family event and always coming up short and never saying so. That tiredness is its own kind of information, if you're willing to listen to it. The thing about Theo and Gerald and even my mom is that they're not villains. I don't think of them that way. They did what people do when a system works for them. They kept using it. I had built a version of myself that said yes reliably, that fronted money without needing to be asked twice, that made things easy. Of course they kept pulling on that. I had taught them to. The only person who could unteach them was me. And the way you do that isn't with a confrontation. It isn't with a list of grievances or a letter or a phone call where you finally say everything you've been storing up. It's just a different answer. Not a loud one. Just a different one. And then you hold it, even when the silence that follows gets uncomfortable. I think about the fruit tart I brought to Gerald's birthday dinner. I think about my mom saying, "Okay, that works," after a pause that lasted just a beat too long. I think about how the dinner happened anyway, and how the world didn't end, and how nobody stopped loving me. They just had to recalibrate, the way people always do when something they relied on changes. There's a version of intelligence that's about knowing things. There's another version that's about knowing yourself well enough to recognize when you've been living according to someone else's story about who you are. That second kind is harder to come by. It doesn't come from reading the right books or making the right choices early. It usually comes from a moment in a bathroom, or a bill at a wedding, or $14 and a quiet signature. I don't have a perfect family now. I have the same family, and I have a clear sense of what I owe them and what I don't. Those are different things, and knowing the difference is worth more than anything I fronted.